So I am back on my screen. I'm just going to do the preliminaries today, and then we'll get to the 11:30 Pacific time, midway point for the meeting. So we'll then take a 5-minute break. So my cover page, again, is the Facebook group for this particular meeting. Everyone is encouraged to join, and we can continue on our various discussions, questions, answers, resources, etc. One of the things that you may be interested in when you look into this particular group is that links that lead to recordings of recent meetings and also meetings back in 2013 and 2012 are posted at this group. You can literally click on those links and download whatever you want from those internet storage locations. I'll talk about that in a little more detail when we get to later on when I talk about my plan for 2014. For now, let's talk about our plan for this meeting over the next month and a half. So today is March the 2nd, and we're going to be going into chapter 20. Although we have a little bit to wrap up from chapter 19, just a very quick recap from chapter 19, and then there's a pretty big topic that I touched on last time, and that is, this whole process of having your dreams come true, how does that look in the Tao? And is there a particular Tao of this process that makes it predictable, that when we understand it well, when we understand it better, that it can help us, achieve what we need to do, the mission that we're on in this lifetime? So the answer is yes. I do want to talk about it a little bit before we get into chapter 20. So for that reason, and also because chapter 20 itself is a very long chapter, we may go into March 16th. So both March 9th and March 16th may be devoted to chapter 20, and that'll push 21, 22, etc. further back 1 week. So that is the plan. Now, as far as wrapping up chapter 19, we are at the very last couple of lines to talk about. And the 2 lines talk about plainness, simplicity, and also touch on selfishness and desires. So previously, we talked about the character Su, meaning unbleached silk, and it's a metaphor for plainness, something that has not been dyed with artificial coloring, and therefore represents plainness. And the teaching in the Tao has always been the same, and that is you want to strike the balance in being healthy and presentable without overdoing that, without heavy makeup. And then the other character, Pu, here and here, Pu, it means plain wood, which is symbolic of simplicity. So last time I talked about how this character is often translated by other people as the uncarved block. So that is, in fact, not entirely correct. It's a bit of a distortion from the original concept. So Pu itself is something that you find in nature, and I've added an example here, Pu Shi. So what I did was that I added a character right behind that, which means rock. So literally, this means a plain piece of rock. It's a piece of rock that you can pick up somewhere in nature. Perhaps go on a hike, and there's a pebble that strikes your fancy, so you pick it up. It's not something that's man-made. It's something that's formed by nature. So that plain piece of rock is not an uncarved piece of rock. So I want to make that clear. I want to make sure you understand what the distinction is. So uncarved block, quote unquote, has become Daoist jargon because of the popularity of those books from authors who don't really know what the original Chinese says. And also for language purists, uncarved is not a word. I know it's surprising, it's actually not a word. Of course, we all understand what it means, but it's not properly part of English. Okay, so when it comes to manifesting the teachings of plainness and simplicity in life, so in conversation, the ideal is to be plain spoken and to avoid using words that are designed to show off. So examples include acronyms, jargon, uncommon words, vocabulary words, and I also mentioned like foreign language. Anything that is ego-driven, designed to show off, designed to put the spotlight on yourself, those are the kind of things that are avoided by cultivators of the Tao. And in terms of appearance, the ideal is to be presentable and elegant. I added an example here. So let me talk about this. When I visited Japan, one of the things that I really appreciated and admired and respected about Japanese culture was that in the entire society, top to bottom, every level of society, people naturally follow this idea that they want to be presentable and they want to be, and they're always, they never fail to be elegant. So when I was there, I had the opportunity to observe wedding ceremonies in Japan, and I was, it was so nice. You know, I thought it was just so, it was so dignified. It was beautifully conducted. Everyone who was there in Japan, in Japanese society, when you attend a formal occasion, people have a choice. They can wear Western formal attire. So you have people there. You have ladies wearing, you know, the little black dress, evening attire. You have men wearing, you know, suits, tuxedo, etc. But you also have people who wear traditional kimono. Whatever they choose to wear, it's all very tastefully done. You know, nothing flashy, nothing gaudy, but very elegant. So everything together, they created this atmosphere that makes sure you know that everyone who's in attendance is demonstrating the utmost respect for the occasion, you know, the wedding. So that got me thinking that, you know, there's going to be people who say, well, I want to be natural. You know, I'm just gonna go as I am. Yeah, I'm in sweatpants, so what? That's natural for me. But I think, you know, it is natural, I would say. On the contrary, I think it's natural for all of us to wish to demonstrate a measure of respect when we find ourselves attending an event that calls for that. If you were, you know, meeting someone who's important, someone that you admire and respect, if you had an audience with the Pope, with the head of state, you know, I think chances are pretty good that you're going to want to present yourself at your best. It isn't contrary to the Tao that you have that desire. It's very natural that you want to be at your best when you interact with other human beings. You want to show a measure of your respect naturally. So that flows very well from the Tao. And I want to say that if that is true for you, do not create a double standard where you have an excuse for yourself to not do that with other people. It would only mean that you don't have the same respect for them. So that is the example that I want to present here. Now, I also talked about, you know, flashy outfits. In addition to these, I also talked about, you know, body piercing and stuff like that, tattoos, which I know alienates a lot of my readership. So for those of you who were bent out of shape, let me say that the idea isn't to criticize your personal choices in your appearance. The idea is to get you to look within, to see if the reason why you did that, the reason why you decided to, for instance, you know, perhaps cover yourself head to toe with tattoos, the reason why you did that is to draw attention, likely to draw attention. And that may be to satisfy an emptiness, a void within you that gnaws at you and won't be satisfied until you have that attention from other people. If that is the case, then you're going to want to take a look at what that inner issue is causing that void, causing that dissatisfaction, causing the emptiness when people are not looking at you, when the spotlight is not on you. So It's a dangerous sign of an ego-driven existence where you crave external approval. Okay, that's my message. So what I'm trying to say last time is not that you must put on makeup when you show your face in public. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that you have to find a point of moderation between the natural and the too much, between the too little and the too much. Whatever that natural balance is for you, I cannot say. It is for you to determine for yourself. Okay. Now, we're going to get to this part here. So this is about the furthering the balance theme. So I've decided to bring in my yin and yang symbol here to remind everyone about the balance. So this is going to be about the balance between yourself and others, the balance between a lack of desires and too much desires. In the very last part of chapter 19, it talks about reducing selfishness and desires. So usually among human beings, there's people tend to be over the top. So we tend to be too selfish and have too much desires, especially for material things. Therefore, the default position from Lao Tzu is to dial it down, is to reduce that. Now, in the Tao, it's never about complete elimination. That is another reason why I have the yin and yang symbol here. Within the yin, there's yang. Within the yang, there's yin. So it's a way to say that you can never have a complete or absolute anything. So there always has to be a balance. And when it comes to being selfish or working for other people, the idea is to strike a balance. You could, for instance, when you are too selfish, you're not thinking of other people at all. That's one extreme. The other extreme is that you throw yourself, neglecting your own health, you throw yourself into work for other people, and neglecting your health, causing yourself problems, which get in the way of you continuing your work for other people. So that's the other extreme. You want to strike a balance somewhere in the middle. So you take good care of yourself so you can take better care of others. So it's the same in terms of desires. So let me just identify a couple of characters here. So this is the character for selfish. In modern Chinese, usually you combine it with another character, say 自私, that's selfish. And then this character is a character for desires. And specifically, it's talking about all the desires that we're subjected to, living in the material world, having a material existence, a lot of temptations that are out there. So when it comes to desires, too much desires manifest as too many material things, too much clutter in your life. So the symbol that the metaphor I always use, or I should say the imagery that I always use to remind people of this is that when you cruise down the streets in a residential block and you look into people's garage and you see that some of them are so filled with stuff that it cannot be used for cars, which was the original purpose of the garage. So that is the imagery that I want to use that to remind everyone that you could easily have too much. And if you haven't seen a garage like that recently, unlikely, because that behavior is all over the place. Think about television shows like Storage Wars, where they open up storage units where people have stashed their junk, but then they can't pay the rent on the storage unit, so it has to be opened up and then sold as an auction to other people. So that's yet another manifestation of having too much. Way too much clutter, more than you need, certainly. So think about that. If you put stuff away in storage, it definitely means that you do not have an immediate need for it, because you're not constantly going back to the storage facility to get stuff out. You're putting stuff away that you're counting on not needing for a while, but then you can't bring yourself to give them away or to throw them away. So those are definitely not the things that you absolutely need. They are the things that you want to keep, and there's a huge difference. Now, the other aspect of it is that we talk about desires in terms of life, in terms of having the desire to improve on your current prospects. Now, when taken to an extreme, it becomes ambition. It becomes just aggression. Too little, it becomes apathy, indifference, slacking off, and being very passive. So that is the reason why I want to also use the yin and yang symbol to apply to that, equilibrium, yet another word for balance, finding that right point between extremes where you are getting that balance between too much and too little. So you are content with your situation, and yet you are still motivated to seek the next level, to let yourself express your full potential. Generally speaking, in the Tao, to want to better yourself, to want to be uplifted, to want to inspire yourself to greater action, greater potential, is a natural impulse to be the best that you can be, to fulfill all the potential that you have. If you have potential within you that is unfulfilled, it bothers you, it creates a feeling of negativity, and that's because you are not following the natural impulse to maximize your personal potential.
If I have somebody talk, if I buy a pair of shoes, if they're really running down, I have to get rid of a pair of shoes in my closet. And I'm used to not do that. And then go like that. So if I get a pair, I have to get rid of a pair or just get rid of them.
Right. So BB is pointing out that, there are, when she has a pair of shoes that's very old and really should be thrown away, she might, before, she might hang on to it. Now she's developing the discipline to be willing to get rid of it. And that may, to some people, that may seem like not a very big thing, but it's the small things in life that build up to the overall practice of being able to let go. In the advanced levels of study in the Tao, there's for people who have mastered the whole concept of letting go, the advanced talks about, no, you have to let go of everything. You even have to let go of the concept of letting go. So the idea is that your inclination to let go is not something that you remind yourself to do, but something that is built in to your overall makeup, so that you are letting go naturally. So you can let go of having a concept that reminds yourself that you have to let go. Let go of letting go. So it goes on. So let's go to the next slide. This is the thing that I wanted to spend a little bit more time on, and this started from a couple meetings ago when I made the observation that I can think of around 10 people or so, including Bill and Carmen, a couple of other people that you guys have heard about over the years, but basically people that began years ago and cultivated the Tao. I have seen how, in one way or another, their dreams have all become reality. So among all of these people, the success rate of having that dream come true is 100%. So just the same, I also observed people who did not follow that path, people who investigated the Tao and then drifted off and did something else. So for a lot of them, their lives remain the same or have taken a turn for the worse, but the characteristic for people who are in that category is that usually they will convince themselves that their lives have changed dramatically. External perspective will say otherwise. So that's why I say some people live their dreams while others only dream. And the other observation that I have is that I have also seen many people rely on positive thinking, and it simply does not work for them unless they couple it with some sort of action. So positive thinking can work very well when the thinking, when the positive energy in the thinking is so great that you just jump out of your couch and take action. So those that remain on the couch, those are the people for whom this does not work. Now, it is because people are constantly looking for that. Hey, what is the secret for me to realize my dreams? But what is unsaid is, what is the secret for me to realize my dreams without me having to lift a finger? People are constantly looking for that. Any books that are out there that say that, here's how you can do it, but without spelling it out in those terms, disguising it somewhat, all of those books are destined to sell extremely well because it fulfills a need that people have, the need to believe in magical thinking that, things can happen just by magic. And that's the reason why many self-improvement books do not work. They're out there to basically realize the author's dreams of becoming financially independent. So the Dao process will work 100%. Now, when I began this whole process of investigating the spiritual path, I did have a friend who, I had no idea, but I guess every person, your friends kind of reflect who you are within. So the person that I was back then was not too different from the people that I just talked about, the people who, feel like there must be a magical way for them to get whatever they want without doing a whole lot of work. I was probably like that, which is how I was attracting that kind of friend. So one of my friends had a vast collection of cassettes. Back in those days, it was all cassettes. He loved to make recordings of these cassettes and give them out to people. And he took me to all these self-improvement seminars and introduced me to many of the self-improvement movements. So that's how I became familiar with that. Now, I became increasingly uncomfortable with what I was hearing because I could see very plainly that while I was definitely changing my life, that my friend's life was still the same, that he was kind of stuck in place. So that's what clued me in at first as to the difference between the Dao process and the self-improvement movement. So later on, I also realized that when you get further into it, as he was, a lot of these seminars are very expensive, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, and they don't, the way that they're sold, the way that they're advertised or promoted or marketed or sold is always the same. And that is, well, there's a money-back guarantee. So if you don't get your money's worth, we'll give you a full refund. That's number one. Number two, if you could, realize your dream, then you're going to have millions. You're not going to care about the thousands that you're spending for this. So they succeed in that pitch very often, and they usually, whatever refund requests they may get, could always be deflected or reduced. So overall, they still make out very well. But my concern is that the people who are misled into believing that these actually work when they're not getting the complete picture of how the mechanism is for realization of one's dreams. Now, in the Tao, initially, there's going to be people who say that, well, I practice the Tao, so I give up goals. Goals bring about stress, and it's emptiness. When I get to these goals, when I meet these deadlines, I drive myself crazy with strife, with tension, with stress when I pursue these goals. So I've learned to let go of these goals, and I just flow with life and let it take me where it will. I just follow my fascination, etc. And you shouldn't have any goals. You should let go of your goals. The great sages teach that you should let go of everything. So just, don't even have any goals at all. Now, I found this to be very convincing at first until I realized one thing, that if I started out speaking with people like this, talking about goals, they will give me that answer. But if I say the exact same thing instead of saying, my goal is to do X, Y, Z, if I know from repeated experience that if I say my goal is to do X, Y, Z, they will come back and give me the lecture on how one should be without goals in the Tao. Okay? Predictable, happens every time. But if I change one word, if instead of goal I say dream or vision, then no one will have any objections to that. That is because in Western culture, the word goal, goals, plural, these have gotten a negative, a bad rap, a negative energy that's associated with it. It's associated with stress. It's associated with the rat race, climbing the social ladder, getting nowhere. But dreams, really the same thing. Okay, that's still respected. That is still admired. Oh, you have a vision about the future. You have an ideal about the future. You dream of a better future for yourself and your family, for other human beings, stuff like that. So that is the same thing that I would say to people that think of goals in terms of what is your dream or your vision for a better future for yourself. That'll bypass that first level knee-jerk reaction from people that think they understand the Tao. Number two is to realize that actual authentic Tao is not opposed to goals at all. It actually encourages people to have a grand vision, a great goal for the future, but it teaches that people should go about it not in an obsessive way, but in a way that is smooth, graceful, and effective. So the Eastern conception of goals and meeting those goals is very different from the Western conception of the rat race, the stressful day-to-day, the keeping your nose to the grind and so forth. Okay, so now let's get to what we talked about last time, the way to do it. Here's the quick preview of it. Live your dreams not by obsessing over the dreams, but by bettering yourself. Now that requires a lot of explanation, so let me get to that. The overall Tao process, this is not unique to the Tao. This is not unique to Eastern modes of thinking. This is something that humanity has discovered for as long as there has been human beings in the East and West throughout the entire span of history. Many different wise people have discovered that this is the way it works. So I call it the Tao process because it is, quote unquote, the way it works. Okay, I do not mean to associate it with an Eastern or Asian exclusive type of teaching. It's not new. It is not invented by me. It's been known for a very long time by all the wise people, all the sages, all the great teachers throughout history. Now, there's going to be one point out of the five that is the most important. The other parts are there just to reinforce that. So I know that there are people who don't follow the process exactly, but still get to the dream become a reality. So the Tao process here, just to kind of go over it at a high level, and then I'll talk about it in detail, is that you start with a vision. So remember, this could be an ideal for the future. This could be your dream, something that you want to see come true. Now, you want to make sure to have the maximum ease and maximum effectiveness and also maximum sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. You want to make it something not just about you, but also about other people, something that benefits you and others. And you also want to take into account what is within the realm of possibility for you. So, I myself, being 5'8", would not have a dream about being able to win the slam dunk contest at the NBA. And also my wife will tell you that I will not have a vision to win American Idol. Not in the cards for me. Because she has heard me singing. Now, the second step, I have seen people accomplish great things without step number two, but I always advise doing step number two, again, to maximize your chances of success, and that is to write it down for yourself. You don't need to show it to anyone. Write it down for yourself, be specific but not too specific. I'll give you some examples later on. And then you want to contemplate the person who will be worthy of this vision. So the easiest way to see this, I have two examples later on to showcase how this works. One of those examples is that, if you want to find the right person for yourself, the very best person, the best companion for the rest of your life, to spend your life with, then you want to contemplate the person who would be worthy of that. If what you're thinking of is the princess of your dreams, what will be the prince? Who will be a great match for the princess? If you're thinking of the prince, riding to your rescue, the perfect prince, who will be the princess that is worthy of the rescue? Then, number 4 is where you have to be brutally honest about the differences between yourself and this ideal person. So, there are techniques for that. As an example, a lot of times we don't really know how off we are from the ideal. We think we're doing pretty well. Other people will point out that no, there's a long way to go. So what some people have done to great effectiveness is that they enlist a trusted friend, sit down with them, and have them help with this process to assess how far they still have to go, to help them be brutally honest with themselves. And then number 5, cultivate yourself instead of the vision. Do not pursue the vision, do not pursue the goal, but to approach the ideal, okay? In other words, when you look at the difference between you and the ideal person, you want to begin to minimize that difference. You want to begin to reduce the difference between yourself and the ideal. You want to become, as closely as you can, the person who will be worthy of that. So this is all built upon a very old idea, an idea that there's a quote that I think many of you have heard, and that is, in life, you do not get what you want, you get who you are. So that is the old idea. Now, I've been trying to track down the source of that quote, and then I saw a complete quote from a personal coach who was supposedly the source, and he said, in life, you don't get what you want, you get who you are, and your thinking determines who you are. So that extended quote, the second part of it, is what I was trying to address in the previous slide. Because too many people think that they only have to think certain thoughts to be different, to be a different person. And I would say that no, there's actually a lot more work that you have to do to become a different person. So in order to build up your wind, as an example, you have to take up some sort of cardio exercise, whether it's jogging or bicycling or something else. Just by thinking about having a person with more stamina won't magically cause you to become that person. So several things I want to talk about there. First, I've already brought that up. It's not unique to the Tao. I only call it the Tao because it's the way things work. So you're going to have different expressions. The Western expression in life, this is my attempt to paraphrase. Western expression, in life, what you get matches who you are, not necessarily what you want. And I say it like that because there are going to be times, I have seen examples where what someone wants matches who they are. So they get to that point very easily. A lot of times, all they need is a catalyst or a nudge in the right direction, and that's it. They get from A to B very quickly. But more often than not, there's a distance between who you are and what you want, and therefore the two are not aligned. So the Eastern expression that talks about the same mechanism, life is a karmic mirror that will always reflect your true self in the long run. So in order for life to come back with a better reflection, you have to change your true self within. So either way, we're really talking about the same thing, which is why I say this is not exclusive to the Tao. So what are the challenges? Well, number one, right off the bat, we don't always know ourselves all that well. This is true for almost everyone. And what we think of ourselves is usually different from the way other people see us. If you want to see some quick examples of that, think about the difference of what you look like in the mirror and what you look like in photographs of you. Okay? So what you look like in the mirror, you always self-adjust. Unconsciously, subconsciously, you are adjusting yourself to your best looking expression and best angle subtly as you look in the mirror. When you take a photograph, you don't always have that opportunity, so it comes off looking differently from what you expect. It's the way other people see you, not the way you see yourself. And think about what happens when you listen to your own voice, your recorded voice, you know, a tape recorder or something else. I know many people who cringe, including myself, by the way, cringe at the recording of their own voice because they sound different from the sound that they hear through bone conduction. So again, our self-concept is different from other people's concept of us. And a lot of times we give ourselves a lot of leeway. You know, I think of myself as thrifty. Other people think of me as stingy. You know, I think of myself as generous. Other people think of me as wasteful, etc. So we don't always know ourselves all that well. So for that reason, it is sometimes very helpful to enlist people to help you assess who you are, not the way you see yourself, but the way other people see you. And number two is what I said, changing who we are requires more than thinking. You have to put certain things into practice, create habits that reinforce the vision of who you want to be. And your progress depends on how much you change. I'm reminded here of what I told Yolan a week ago, that I have seen dramatic differences that in the same kind of case, you know, for one person, he had followed the process exactly. He had been very lonely for many years, and he followed. So I told him that you have to think about the person that you are looking for, write it down. So he did, and then he didn't need to share with me, but he reported back and said that, yeah, you know, I enjoy writing, so I wrote about this blonde bartender. And I said, okay, well, blonde, that's being kind of specific, but I guess there's a lot of blondes where you are, but bartender, that's a very specific occupation. You know, I think what you're trying to say is that you want someone who's sociable. You should write that instead. Before he could change what he wrote, he ended up with the person he was looking for, who was indeed a blonde bartender. So now the reason why it worked that well for him is because he had already been very well cultivated. So he was already a good match for the ideal that he had in mind. Therefore, all he needed was a catalyst or a nudge in the right direction. The opposite example from him is another friend that I advised and counseled for him to change. Now, his self-concept is not at all accurate. So he feels like he changed a lot, but I can tell that he only changed 1 iota. So when he is on a quest of looking for the person that will fit his ideal, it literally took him years, many years before he found someone. He went through a lot of hardship to get to that point. Now, he did end up realizing his dream to become reality. He found someone. But he could have accelerated that process by changing himself more. So the key is always that last point, is to cultivate yourself. These examples that I talked about, the people that had 100% success rate, some of them wrote down their plans in great detail, but some of them did not, because that's an optional step. The most important part is the last part, is to become a better person. When you become a better person, your reality cannot help but become a better reality to match the betterness that is within you. So the last thing to think about is that you're not done when the dream comes true. The dream becoming reality is not a silver bullet. It does not solve all of your problems. It can actually bring more problems. So if you are someone who dreams of becoming a business owner and therefore financially independent and be your own boss, master your own destiny, and so forth, when that becomes reality, you quickly realize that there's way more for you to handle, way more for you to worry about than before. So the ideal person who's worthy of that dream is someone who can handle all of that. And even in the process of realizing that dream, there's going to be so many more challenges that are associated with it. You have to be mentally prepared. It is not a silver bullet. It will not solve all of your problems. It's going to get you to a point where you are better off than you are today. That's the magic of realizing your dreams in the Tao, but it's not going to solve everything. You got to be very realistic about that. So with that as the caveat, let me get to the examples. Let's run through these. So I've touched on these examples. Remember, the steps are 5 that you got to start out with a vision. Then write down the specifics. So the first part, having a vision, that's a necessity. You got to know where you're going. You got to know what it is that you want. So you will know that when it becomes reality, that this process has worked. So number 1 is not optional. Number 2, I have seen some people do it, some people not do it, but your chances are greater if you actually do it. And that is to write it down. Number 3 is to envision the ideal person that you have to become to be worthy of the vision. So again, this is something that not everybody does, but again, you will become, so there are plenty of Tao cultivators who only have a vague idea that they have to become a better version of themselves. So they don't envision the ideal. But what I do is that I always recommend everybody does, and when I think about the ideal, I also want to be very specific, that you think about physically, mentally, and spiritually. Those 3 aspects. Physically, what is this person, what is the ideal of this person? Usually you can right off the bat think of, healthy, full of energy, etc. Those all have to do with your physiology. Mentally, what does this person have to know, have to learn? What are the skills to acquire, etc. And spiritually, what is the mindset? What is the peace within? And so on. So what kind of person will be worthy of the vision? Then the part where you have to be brutally honest is, what is the difference between yourself and the vision? Now, it's only you talking to yourself, so you can afford to be very honest with yourself. If you cannot trust yourself to see everything, you can enlist someone that you trust to talk about that. And then you have to start closing the gap by becoming. So there's a writer. So I mentioned before that this is not unique to the Tao. That many other people have come across this, some independently of others. And there's a tendency that when people discover that this is the way it works, they all feel like it's an original discovery, but it's been discovered many, many times throughout history. So there's one writer who stumbled upon this, who had to work in spectacular fashion for him. He had a divorce, was in a marriage that did not work out, and then he felt very lonely, and he wanted to find someone that would be right for him for the rest of his life journey. So he thought about this process. He thought about how it works. He stumbled upon it. He ended up calling it the soulmate process, but it's the same thing. Okay, so he began being very specific about someone that he was looking for. And to be specific, you need to cover all aspects of the person, physically, mentally, spiritually. So as an example, for him, he knew what he wanted. He knew that this person, he knew what he liked. Okay, he knew that he liked a lady with a dancer's physique. Sleek, graceful movements, and beautiful in that very, very streamlined way. that dancers, if you think about dancers and how they are, that's exactly what he wanted. Okay, so that's just one example. So he wrote all this down, and then what he did in this entire process is that he did not quite trust himself to be totally honest. So he looked around for all the ladies that he knew, and he found someone who fit that ideal the most, and he sat down with her. So then he asked her, well, what is the ideal person that you're looking for who will be worthy of someone like you? So, and that's the third step there. What kind of person will be a great match? So let me say this. This is part of the Tao. This is natural. If you think about the easy example of us when we look at movies, imagine that we're watching a romantic movie. Some movies are well made and some movies are not. Okay? Think about the reaction that you get, the audience gets when you're done watching the movie. You may say, that was a really good movie. The male lead, the female lead, that was really well written. They were a good match. So they were a good match in the characters that the actors portrayed, that they were a good fit to one another physically. Okay, there's got to be that physical match. What if there isn't? If there isn't, you come away dissatisfied from the movie. I don't know. That was okay. I didn't love the movie. Or if by the plotting and the dialogue of the characters, there wasn't a fantastic chemistry between the two characters, you come away vaguely dissatisfied. I don't know, the chemistry wasn't really working for me. Right? So it all speaks to our inner natural need to find the right match. Now, you certainly want the right match for you, it's just that you may not be worthy of the right match. That's the problem. So that's what this is all about. So if you have trouble envisioning the good match and the match that's not so great, think about those movies that you like with a great match, movies that you didn't like quite as much because you didn't feel that there was the matching chemistry that you were looking for. So now, this particular writer, when he looked at himself, he realized that, well, I want a lady with a dancer's physique, but I've let myself go to seed. I have a little bit of a pot belly, haven't been working out. So how am I a great match for this lady with a great physique? I'm not, okay? So he's brutally honest with himself and set himself to improve himself in that respect. And he did the same thing mentally and spiritually. He sought ways to improve himself to be the best match that he could be. He started to close the gap. Okay? So he wasn't that far from his ideal, and therefore he succeeded in spectacular fashion. When you succeed in spectacular fashion, you will feel as if the success is miraculous or unlikely or just incredible. But it works because it is the Tao. In the example of an entrepreneur, you see a parallel in the process. This is not just for romance. That's just an easy example to pick on. Your own personal goal could have nothing to do with the soulmate process or becoming an entrepreneur. These are just examples. So think of someone who is envisioning, she's thinking, hey, one day I'm going to have a business of my own. I can be engaged in doing what I truly love. I can really help people. That is so satisfying. And I can become more financially independent, master my own destiny, be my own boss, etc. So then you got to have the details. What does that mean to have your own business? If it's a business that you want to start, what is the plan? A business plan has a lot of details, and it covers every aspect of the business, operationally, financially, accounting, management, everything. Forecasts, what they call the kind of analysis they do, they talk about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, vulnerabilities, competition. What is the competitive landscape? Very detailed. So then next, What kind of person would be suitable to lead such a business? What would be the ideal person to lead such a business? You know, that person doesn't have to be great at everything, but that person has to be pretty good at every aspect of the business. You know, that person cannot rely on other people to understand accounting while understanding nothing of accounting himself or herself. That person has to have a pretty good basic grasp. And then comes the analysis. Where do I fall short? What are my strong suits? How am I with accounting? How am I with sales? How am I in management? Am I comfortable telling people what to do if I have people working for me? And it goes on and on. There's a lot more details here, but the point is, what is the difference between you and the person who would fit the vision? Then let's just say, oh, I realize that I don't really know enough about the dollars and cents part of the business. I'm going to have to start educating myself to get better at it. So when you engage in that process, whatever problems that you're currently having will not be as significant as they were before. You'll be going forward with great purpose and probably having a great time. So to the extent that you can change yourself, the corresponding change will happen in reality. If the change is not happening quickly enough in reality, it speaks to a bigger gap than you know in the difference area. And you got to figure out ways to close that gap in order to accelerate the realization of the dream. So that's how the process works. Now, when you do take into action there and make meaningful progress, you're going to find all kinds of help from all different directions, from other people, from chance encounters, from, the Dao De Jing calls it from the heaven. Heaven will come to your aid. In the West, we will say God helps those who help themselves. Providence moves too. All of those things will come together for you. But those things will not come to your aid unless you begin to make meaningful progress in that direction. When you do, it's like a shortcut. It's like an acceleration. It's like going from impulse drive into warp drive. And sorry about that nerdy, tricky reference. So I want to not exempt myself from talking about having these goals or visions or dreams for the future. So I just want to kind of cover some basics, let you guys know that I am in the process of doing this. I need to find more time to do that. This is above and beyond me finishing the 2 books that I had in mind to finish this year. One of them is just about done. The other one, I've only just started. And the other vision or dream that I have is to vastly expand the Dao De Jing section. Right now, it just has translation. In the future, I wanted to have English and Chinese side by side, and I want to have additional notes that are beyond the commentaries that are already in the book. So my goal is to make it the best possible reference to the Dao De Jing online. The book that I have out there, Dao De Jing annotated and explained, those of you that have it, you know that it doesn't have Chinese characters in it. The publisher was very realistic in telling me that it would drive up the cost of preparing that publication. So couldn't do it. But there's nothing to prevent me from doing that on the internet. So I can have the Chinese with the English side by side. That's something that I've always wanted. And what I have in the book is basically 1-page annotations, sometimes a lot, sometimes little, sometimes half a page, sometimes like 3/4 of a page. Now, when you've been listening to me talk about the Dao De Jing, you know that there's plenty more to say about every chapter than the annotation that I have in there. So those are the things that I can include. I won't ever be able to use any of the material from the book because the publisher has the copyright to that material. But there's other stuff that I can talk about that are not talked about in that book. So that's what I want to do there. Eventually, beyond the 2 books for 2014. So copy.com, this is similar to Dropbox. It's a competitor to Dropbox because they came out, relatively recently. I think it's only been about a year. They offered a great referral program. So I sent an email to everybody asking everyone to use my referral link in order to increase my storage. A lot of people responded and helped me out. So we now have a lot of storage for the meeting archives. So if you were to go to the Dao meeting group on Facebook, you will see a link leading to the 2013 and 2012 meeting archives. They're all there. The interface looks up like this. And you'll see that all of those meetings are what you can download. They were all recorded as MOV, I think QuickTime videos. I didn't do the recording myself. I want to thank Don, the volunteer who did it. And I'm just making his labor of love available to as many people as I can. So in the future, there's, of course, there have been books, which is also on Facebook. So I hope to continue putting little snippets, quotes from the books every now and then. Hopefully will be helpful to people day to day. Social media, not just Facebook, but also Twitter. I also want to make it so that whenever there's updates to 1000.net, that there's automatic notification. So people that are logging into the social media will be automatically notified. So that'll just be another measure of convenience for us to take advantage of technology more. So those are my plans for 2014. I think if you add that to the 2 books that I plan to write, it's probably enough for 2014. That's my vision. That's my dream. That's my dream. I don't know if I get to finish all of it in 2014. I can't say that we already have copy.com, so at least one of the items is done. I still need to update the Daoist.net website, so those links are easier to get at. So the work goes on. Now, here we are at chapter 20. Look at how long this chapter is. So I think that the best thing for us to do is to kind of go over quickly and then break it down into sections, perhaps over the next couple of weekends, a couple of Sundays, to talk about it in detail. There's a lot of good material here. So if you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and read through this one time, and then what I'll do is to do a quick preview of next time, what I intend to talk about. I'll zoom by all the different slides on chapter 20. You'll probably notice that I had to use all the vertical space that I can in the slide to make everything fit, and therefore the chapter title is not on the side. So chapter 20 says, cease learning, no more worries. Respectful response and scornful response. How much is the difference? Goodness and evil, how much do they differ? What the people fear, I cannot be unafraid. So desolate, how limitless it is. The people are excited, as if enjoying a great feast, as if climbing to the terrace in spring. I alone am quiet and uninvolved, like an infant, not yet smiling, so weary, like having no place to return. The people all have surplus, while I alone seem lacking. I have the heart of a fool indeed, so ignorant. Ordinary people are bright. I alone am muddled. Ordinary people are scrutinizing. I alone am obtuse. Such tranquility, like the ocean. Such high wind, as if without limits. The people all have goals, and I alone am stubborn and lowly. I alone am different from them and value the nourishing mother. Very long chapter, chapter 20. So there are some things to point out here. Toward the very end, when it talks about the people all have goals, I alone am stubborn and lowly. So it is important to understand what Lao Tzu meant exactly when he was talking about the goals that most people have. He was referring to people who are steeped in the material world and therefore obsessed with material world goals. Now, there's many other passages that are like that throughout the entire chapter. They all correspond with one another. It becomes a lot clearer when we explore the chapter section by section, line by line, character by character. So here's a quick preview. First, I divide up the chapter into two sections. There's the section above the red line, and it is possible, by the way, to move the red line up by one line for a reason that will become clear in just a bit. Everything below the red line is a comparison between how most people are to how the Tao cultivator is. The difference between those who are not aware or not interested in the Tao to someone who is devoted to the Tao. So everything below the red line is about that comparison. Line 7, right above the red line, where it says desolate, limitless, that's a reference to the gap between the two. That there seems to be such a big difference between those who understand and those who don't understand. And that's the reason why, if you wanted to move the line up to between 6 and 7, that's okay too. Now, everything above the red line is a series of questions that gives insights to the way Tao cultivators think. And I'm going to put the same questions on you as well. But let me move on to talk about the rest of the analysis that's ahead of us for next time. Then we'll do a quick summary for today. So each section can be further divided into smaller subsections. I'm going through this kind of quick because we don't really have any time left, but we're going to go through absolutely everything in great detail next time. So here I'm pointing out the Chinese characters in the English translations, the English words corresponding to the characters. Here I'm pointing out the subdivisions within the overall division. And now here we are at the summary. So exercise 1, cultivating yourself. This is the part of the summary that we need to, this is really the only thing we need to focus on. Next time we'll talk about these questions to contemplate. These questions to contemplate come from the beginning part or the top half of chapter 20. So the exercise for you is to choose a dream or vision you have for the future and use it to help you determine what to work on for your own personal cultivation. What is between the two is, as I have explained, if you think about the vision, the dream or vision for the future, then the very next thing you have to think about is what is the person, who is the person, what is the person like that is worthy of the vision. Now, I say that this never fails. This is the way it always works. We have seen different ways that this manifests as reality. So remember that you often hear the saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And sometimes it says, when the student is ready, the master appears. The reason why that happens is because the readiness of the students is an inner quality. It's a quality within that is reflected in the external reality. So when someone just starting out but is not ready, the student is not ready, that person may be full of preconceptions, full of ideas, and there's no room to really learn anything new. But if this person begins to ready himself to become a better version of himself and becomes humble, receptive, ready to learn, then that readiness reflected by reality manifests as someone showing up who is the perfect teacher or the perfect guide or the perfect mentor to take that person to the next level. So reality always works that way, no matter what. So think about think about the dream that you want and think about this. You know, there's the people asking questions like, what would you do if you knew that you could not fail? This is kind of like that. You know, what dream would you like to manifest into reality if you knew that you could not fail in having that come true? Then use that to determine what you need to cultivate and become the better person worthy of the dream. That is my message for everyone today. Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持下三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持下各位点传是一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬，请坐下。Thanks everybody.